You know, all your photos, your documents, your entire digital life. We say it's all stored in the cloud. But what if our high-tech data centers could actually learn a thing or two from a 600-year-old blueprint? What if I told you that the ancient manuscripts of Timbuktu were more than just paper, that they were one of the earliest and maybe one of the most robust systems of distributed knowledge storage ever created?
Yeah, when we think of the cloud, we picture blinking servers, racks, and fiber optics. But the core principles, things like decentralization, redundancy, security, well, they were perfected centuries ago, right in the Sahara Desert. And they used leather trunks, imported paper, and a whole community of scholars. This is the story of that original cloud.
For centuries, Timbuktu wasn't just some remote city. It was basically a high-bandwidth intellectual hub. I mean, it was perfectly positioned at the crossroads of the Niger River and major Saharan trade routes. So it wasn't just trading gold and salt, it was trading in data, connecting West Africa with intellectual centers like Cairo and Baghdad.
And the result of all that trade? A truly staggering amount of knowledge. We're talking about an estimated 700,000 manuscripts. That's one of the greatest archives of the medieval world, and one most people have never even heard of. So how on earth did it survive for so long? Well, the answer's all in its brilliant design.
The secret, the real magic here, was that Timbuktu's archive was a distributed network. You know, instead of putting all your precious data in one single place, it was spread out, copied, and stored across hundreds of different locations. Each one was an independent part of the whole, but they were all connected.
And this is where we see the absolute genius of their system. Think about the famous Library of Alexandria. It was centralized, one big building, and eventually it was destroyed. Timbuktu's knowledge, on the other hand, was stored in hundreds of private family libraries. These homes were like individual nodes in the network. So if one was attacked, or burned, or flooded, the rest of the archive, the network, survived. It was resilience built right into the design.
All right, so let's dig into the hardware and the software of this system. I mean, how is this priceless data physically stored and protected from that harsh desert environment and, constant threats? Turns out the solutions were every bit as ingenious as the network itself.
First, let's talk about what this data actually was, because it's incredible. We're not just talking about religious texts here. These manuscripts have detailed procedures for cataract surgery, complex astronomical charts, and legal arguments against slavery that predate Western abolitionism by centuries. They even had what was basically a kind of social feed, notes in the margins recording everything from droughts and plagues to heated debates about tobacco.
Now, protecting this data, that required a multi-layered security system, kind of like a firewall. It all started with the architecture. Thick, mud brick walls that acted as a natural climate control system. Then, the manuscripts themselves were sealed away in trunks. And finally, they were protected by a really sophisticated chemical defense system.
And this is my favorite part. They had a living antivirus. The librarians used this powerful mix of local plants, like tobacco, neem, and cumin. The nicotine in tobacco is basically a neurotoxin for insects, and neem messes with their ability to reproduce. This bit of indigenous chemistry kept the data safe from corruption, from termites and beetles for hundreds of years.
But in 2012, this ancient system faced its greatest test. Extremist groups took over northern Mali, and they brought with them an ideology that saw this incredible library of knowledge as a threat that needed to be erased. This was a catastrophic threat vector, and the goal was total data deletion.
So what happened? Well, a local librarian named Dr. Abdelkader Haidara basically activated the ancient network. He and a whole team from the community launched this massive, secret rescue operation. They smuggled the manuscripts out of the city in metal footlockers using cars, mule carts, even boats on the Niger River, often hiding them under piles of fruit and grain. The extremists' final act before they fled the city was to burn the Ahmed Baba Institute. Now that was a modern, centralized library. And tragically, over 4,000 manuscripts were confirmed destroyed in that fire. It just goes to show you the vulnerability of putting everything in one high-profile spot.
But here's the incredible part. Over 95% of Timbuktu's manuscripts survived the occupation. When it was faced with an existential threat, the decentralized network of family libraries worked exactly as it was designed to. The data was dispersed, it was hidden, and it was saved. You see, that rescue proved that the ultimate strength of this system wasn't just its structure. It was the community that valued it, the people themselves with a firewall. They understood exactly how valuable that knowledge was, and they risked their lives to preserve it.
So how does this ancient system connect back to our modern world? Well, after being safe from fire, the manuscripts faced a new threat down in the humid capital of Bamako, mold. The solution was to create a digital mirror, evolving Timbuktu's archive into a kind of hybrid cloud.
In this huge international effort, hundreds of thousands of pages were digitized in high resolution. This created a whole new layer of what we'd call triple redundancy. Digital copies are now held by the original family owners, by a local organization in Mali, and on secure servers internationally. The physical archive was uploaded to the modern digital cloud. And this whole story matters so much because the threats have simply evolved. Termites have become digital bit rot, fire has become hacking, and invaders have become things like electromagnetic pulses. But the fundamental challenge of just preserving human knowledge, that remains exactly the same.
I mean, think about it. Our entire civilization is being recorded on formats that we might not even be able to read in 50 years. Timbuktu built a memory on paper and trust that lasted for 6 centuries. So the question really isn't just what we can learn from their past, but are we building a future that's even half as resilient?